Welcome in, everyone. This is the full-time Roundup podcast. 1 year anniversary. It's been a wild ride the last 365 days and change, but wouldn't change it for anything. Coming on here and talking every Sunday and Monday and occasionally midweek is, one of the things I look forward to most. And to join me, we have a long awaited return of Matt Gesslin. And we also have
True.
Harrison Clark, a
True.
little three panel again. So, boys, take it away.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me back on the show. It felt like, it's been a minute, and it's been good to be back and ready to talk some football. Of course, I hopefully will be back more regularly. But Harrison, my man, you've actually absolutely held down the fort with having to deal with this guy out talking football on the other end. So it's been great to finally meet you, like we said earlier, in person, even though we're doing this virtually, and ready to kind of get at it. So again, thanks for holding us down. And Danny, congrats to us on 1 year from a project that we had no idea what was going to happen. We could have hated each other. This could have been 1 week and done. And it kind of feels that way still every now and then, but we've made it to a year. So congrats to you. And let's get after it today as well.
Absolutely. Just for the listener here, I will be having to talk to two Chelsea fans after a big win. So if I have a little attitude in my voice, you know why. And actually, Paige actually drew up our full-time roundup badge on parchment for the desk, which I thought was a pretty good gift. I wasn't expecting anything for a 1 year, but I thought that was pretty cool, and I'll definitely share that via X. Now let's jump into it. There were some really good games this weekend, and I'm just going to go ahead and get this out of the way. Let's talk about Chelsea Wolves. Wow, 6-2, a lot of goals. I didn't expect that many goals, but I thought it was even more hilarious. Matt, we all know that you hate XG already, but somehow Wolves won the XG with Chelsea putting six past them. Really just talk about that game. And are you going to overreact to this? Are you going to underreact? Or are we just going to stay even cool with Chelsea's expectations this season?
Certainly even keeled, cooled, excited, over the top, all of the above, which is, of course, how you should feel when you have some hope for your team in the future. Again, I think, we were talking before, and it's craziness right now in the Chelsea world. Everyone's super excited. We're gonna win everything again, and Chelsea's back. And time to just slow down. It was one game. They all looked great. The guys looked fantastic. But it's one moment for a bunch of youngsters with a lot of talent, and they put it together. And can they do it for 5-6 games? We have a really nice run in right now up until the Liverpool game mid-October, which will really kind of set the tone and understand where we are going into those. It's Brighton, which is no easy match, but it's not Liverpool. We have Crystal Palace in there, Bournemouth. So, a chance to get some momentum for Maresca and get these guys consistent. And then we go from there. That Liverpool game, like I said, will kind of set the tone for the second half of the quarter mark, and then we go and see what happens in the holiday season. So that's kind of how it should be. They got a lot to learn, but it was really exciting. And Harrison, I don't know about you, but for the first time in a while, I felt like there was something to look at, and I understood what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I texted Danny yesterday. I was like, this is the happiest I've been watching my team play in what feels like a long time. Now, obviously, we're lucky to be supporting a team that has had a lot of success over recent times. So, I mean, it's no like Leeds United or anything like that. But I would say
Shout out to Ewan right away. Like it going.
I would say that the game itself, of course, the backstory with Nani Madueke with the Instagram story saying that Wolverhampton, that the city as a whole is just a piece of shit. And then getting the blowback from the fans as expected mid-game and then scoring a hat trick was just absolutely hilarious. But he was absolutely dominant on the wing, and he was getting fed all game by Palmer. And that duo, I think, has something really special going on. And I think that Maresca, obviously now he knows who probably his right winger is, and time will tell if that ends up sticking. But I've liked Nani the last 2 years, really. Anytime he's made an appearance, he's been a really solid threat on the wing. Still a lot to clean up. Midfield defense. The game in the first half. The game was wide open, and if it was anybody other than Wolves, I think that there would have been more goals scored. But I think they tightened it up a little bit second half, and the attack going forward was stunning, really. So happy for my boys. And yeah, like you said, pretty easy schedule going forward. So let's see if they can rack up some wins here.
Now, I am interested because this was a topic of conversation that, I was in a group chat with Madden. We were talking about it. Realistically, I'd like to hear, what you should be challenging for, and then I might push back depending on what you say here. So for both of you, round table, just name, a spot on the table that you expect to be at.
5th.
4th for me.
Okay. Now, with how much money that's been spent, and we won't even talk about money, just the signings in general. If you look, even though there is, it's a massive squad, looking at the talent within that squad, do you think that even though this is a project with the talent laid in front of you, this team should be challenging, for a top 2 or a Premier League title?
No, I would say that
No.
I
No
buy
chance.
very much into the whole project thing. Like, this is a long-term kind of solution. And I don't think it's necessarily made for the short term, even though they fire managers like it is made for the short term.
Yeah.
I would say that they found a manager who is a style that they want in terms of possessive, and you know what you're going to get with him. I think the last couple of years it's been very, like, with Pochettino, he really in the midfield with Palmer especially, like, he didn't have like a set position for him. He just wandered around, and while Cole was amazing last year, I think they wanted something with a little more set, a little more more tactics involved. But I think the players, obviously there's so much more room to grow, and everybody's so young in the team that it's hard to say necessarily they should be challenging for the title right now.
That's fair.
No, I totally agree. I mean, look at what you're comparing them to. Yes, their talent is certainly evident, but you're also looking at teams like Manchester City and Arsenal and Liverpool who've done it year after year with the same players that are experienced and still young too. Phil Foden's only, I think, 24 years old, and look what he's done. So there's apples to apples in the talent, and yet those guys have way more experience. Now, City wins the whole thing. We'll get to that later probably, because 5 in a row is how do you get yourself up? But on any given day over the course of an entire season, this Chelsea squad, while the future might be there, it's currently not set up to go for a long run into any type of top 3 competition with Liverpool, City, or Arsenal. I just think there's just too much talent and experience on both of those 3 teams, that 5th and maybe an outside shot at 4th, with a Villa has looked very good, but Villa, Newcastle, Spurs, that's a pretty tight little group that you have to compete against too, and we'll see what happens when they go up against them.
Absolutely. I thought, it is refreshing that Enzo Maresca, just seeing the comments he makes and just the coaching, it seems like you might actually have found your guy here. We'll see if you lose a couple in a row, if that pressure mounts like it has with every manager in the last couple years here. But just from what I've seen, I've been impressed with him. I really thought it was going to be a shit show, to be honest. He had such a good squad in the championship, and I felt like there were better candidates out there, but he seems like he's proven everyone wrong. Now, Cole Palmer, 1 goal, 3 assists, might be the easiest hat trick of assists he'll ever have. I mean, his job was just to pass the ball to Noni, and Noni just did all the work here. But the Wonder Kid is shown out this season, and it seems like they really had an emphasis on building around him, and you're seeing the product of that with Neto coming in, getting a big assist to João Felix. He's not having to do it all of himself, and that's seeing Cole Palmer's development. I think that's a good thing. But do you think his numbers will be kind of similar to what it was last year, even with the extra help he'll have?
I would say I could see them very well being close, especially if he's playing in the middle. Like that's the big thing. Like you can't put him on the wing and expect the same results. He's a creator in all forms, and if you're putting him in the middle, like we saw on Sunday or Saturday, I don't even remember when the game was now, but Sunday, yeah. If you put him in the middle, he'll create and he'll score, and he's going to take the penalties. So goals and assists wise, I could see him getting close to that mark. And he came to Chelsea like the season had already started last year, so he's got more games this year with it. Very well could see him getting close to that mark again.
It depends on where Maresca plays him. That's really what it boils down to. And obviously that where he played on Sunday is his best position, hands down, not even a question. So, obviously Maresca's hands were kind of made for him with Lavia out. Now, when Lavia gets back, it's obviously hopefully sooner than later, just another hamstring to add to his list. Does Maresca put Palmer back on the wing? I think obviously that would be pretty silly after what we've seen, but it's a nice problem to have when you can bring in or interchange, depending on who you're playing, more of a defensive type of midfield with Enzo, Caicedo, and Lavia, or a little bit more aggressive and attacking with Palmer. And you can even interchange that in the middle of a game, right? You're up and you need a little bit more defensive. So you bring Lavia off the bench or even Caicedo, depending on, rest and form. So starting to have some good problems with depth. There's still way too much depth, but you're starting to see kind of that, maybe 20-man roster that he can work with, and the rest kind of we loan out or we get rid of altogether. We said it, this had to be a rebuild from the ground completely up. And, yes, it's crazy amounts of money, but that's just a given. But if you start to see some fruits of that labor, and now you're starting to see that kind of that depth, and again, still young players, we'll see what happens. But, he's got to play Cole Palmer at the 10. It's not even a question.
I agree. Ideally, Caicedo and Enzo behind him would be my best midfield trio. Those two behind Cole Palmer still have some work to do, respectively, but we've seen the talent, so we'll have to see kind of how Maresca kind of deals with that midfield.
Do you say that because they're over $100 million players, though, or do you actually feel that way? Because I don't know if I would agree with that, but that might be a different story. I don't want to spend Chelsea all day because there's other
in
stuff
terms of who should be starting.
Right now, I would play Enzo and Lavia,
100%.
But
really,
yeah, like Caicedo, I'm not quite there with him yet, and I think he is at times strong defensively, but he also is very prone to giving the ball away. In the first half, he gave the ball away a ton. And with Lavia's performance in this preseason and in game one, where he was arguably Chelsea's best player, I think that he is definitely an option to go there next to Enzo, who with Enzo's passing ability, I think that you need that kind of from that deeper position. So right now I'm kind of on Enzo and Lavia.
I get that. It is the money spent, but it's also that Lavia hasn't been available almost at all. So yeah. I'm also factoring in that his injury issues, but this is not a Chelsea podcast, so I will gladly pivot this conversation to another great game in the Premier League. Aston Villa, Arsenal, arguably probably the biggest game in terms of the weekend in the Prem. Me and Harrison previewed this a little bit on Thursday. Hope you liked that episode. But that game left a bad taste in my mouth for two reasons. One, I thought Aston Villa were unlucky to lose that game, especially 2-0. I thought the score didn't reflect the game, but also as a Liverpool fan trying to challenge for the title, I think that Arsenal are even better than they were last year, and it scares me a little bit.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, if Ollie Watkins scores that first goal, the game entirely is different. Not to mention the second one that would have
the header
changed the game too. The header should have been a goal.
That hurt.
Harder than it looks. I mean, but the first one is basically a sitter that he missed, and so that completely changes the game. I think Arsenal actually looked pretty poor. especially in the latter half of the game. But I mean, they obviously get the 3 points. So you kind of roll with it. They're going to grow into the season as well. Villa, I think this was a bigger game for Villa early on, just given where they're going to sit, what do they look like against the top competition, and they handled themselves adequately. So this is a real Villa team. I think they'll be there, through the entire season, but not too much to take for an Arsenal fan. If you're me, I mean, they're not worried about this game in the end.
Fair enough.
And Trossard's good, by the way.
Trossard's very good. I was actually I was watching with a buddy of mine, and I was kind of telling him I just don't understand why this guy doesn't start over Martinelli. Like, what does Martinelli do that Trossard does worse? Like, I couldn't think of anything. I mean, Martinelli's output in goals and assists isn't that one. He's a hard worker, and he brings probably more of over top look, but in terms of Arsenal's possession-based football, you're not really playing that many long balls to begin with. I think that Trossard and Havertz kind of interchanging makes a lot more sense, and then you have the shoe and at Saka on the right. So I wouldn't be surprised if Arteta kind of gives Trossard the nod this weekend right before international break.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just what good teams do, man. They just find ways to win, and
that's why I'm scared.
Yeah, I think Villa were excellent for the majority of the game, and like Matt mentioned, like Watkins, absolute sitter, and he missed it completely. Like almost like, yeah, he had basically the whole goal to hit, and he missed the entire net. So, and the header, the header was just an absolutely ridiculous save by David Raya. I also don't know how he missed that, but at the same time, like the fact that Raya even got back up and made that save on the line was ridiculous. And then Trossard scores on his first touch of the game is kind of fitting. So, yeah, it's what good teams do. They find ways to win. And that is the scary part about Arsenal is with the kind of backline they have, and they're able to shut it down for long enough, they'll get their opportunities. And clearly this weekend they finished them.
If they had a number 9, and that is Arsenal, I think they would win the Prem.
That's my biggest scare.
It is.
My biggest scare is that Chelsea doesn't end up with Osimhen and he somehow finds his way to Arsenal. That's my biggest scare.
Or I mean, Gyökeres is the one I've been calling for, but honestly, beggars can't be choosers. You can find a better number 9 than Gabby Jesus out there. 100%. You could probably find someone who's just as good, if not better, than Havertz in the natural position. But I wanted to talk about.
At least they got Mikel Merino, though, so
I actually think that is a pretty good signing. I like
is it though? Like you just said, their main position of need was number 9. So like they go get Mikel Merino. Fabio Vieira is pretty good.
Well, he's on loan now.
No, now because that's why they went. That's why they loaned him, because they got Mikel. Like I would have focused on the 9. I don't know, just me. I think Mikel's overthinking some things a little bit per usual. Well, trying to be clever.
Partey historically gets injured and is not available, and the real question is who you're going to start next to Rice and behind Odegaard. And I think Merino is a really good depth piece there. Fabio Vieira, like he looked good at times last year, but I just don't think he, really cut enough to be, on a challenging Premier League title winning side. But I mean, I could eat crow completely on this, but I did want to talk about the best player on the pitch for that game, and it was without a doubt Morgan Rogers, and then Saliba was close to it. But Morgan Rogers, Harrison is probably getting so sick of me talking about this guy. This guy is the real deal, and I mean, he just finds these like spaces and then just drives for 60 yards and did it the entire game. If Ollie Watkins can put the ball in the back of the net, which is starting to concern me a little bit after 2 games, I really think this Villa side could take an even step up further than where they were last year.
Dude, that guy was an absolute horse running across the field. Like the one run in the second half where he took it basically from his own box and threw 2 guys off of him. I was like, I didn't even know who Morgan Rogers honestly even was before this year. And now I know, because that guy just was just throwing guys off of him. So yeah, he could be a serious problem. And I kind of agree with you that Watkins' output is a little nervy to start, but at least they have Durant as a solid backup if need be.
Thoughts on any of that, Matt?
I mean, it just shows you that a good manager does not need to have crazy, expensive, flashy players. I mean, Unai Emery's roster, if we look at it from top to bottom, is not that strong. By just name awareness alone and like just how they fit in the scheme of world-class football, yet he gets them to be, top 4 side, and just shows you what quality management does, and that there's players everywhere. And so, you have to just keep an eye out. Other guys that, Daniel, we were texting in the group, like Morgan Gibbs-White, like how is he still at Forest? And like, how has no one gone and picked him up? Or James Ward-Prowse all those years. Like there's players like that you can find under the radar. And this kid, obviously he's a little bit younger and still has that potential to grow into being something even bigger, but he stood out to me. And I know I was watching with Johnny. He was like, who's this guy right here? It keeps popping up. So like no one knows who he was. And now he's become this household name. So it's great to see. And they have other players on that team as well. So it'll be a good fit, good outfit.
Yeah. Like probably like 6 months ago, me and Ewan did an episode talking about sometimes the best signings are the championship ones. Example, Morgan Rogers, Morgan Gibbs-White. They actually signed Philogene, the winger from Hull City. So we'll see if he's just another example of that. But I mean, this Morgan Rogers guy was built in a lab for the Prem. He's like 6'3", just stocky guy, and he can just run for days. And he's great on the ball. So I mean, he's one of the guys I'm highest on. And Aston Villa better tie him to another contract, even though they signed him 6 months ago, because big clubs are going to come calling for him if they don't, make him happy soon. Now, kind of going and pivoting to, another match that I wanted to talk about. Tottenham bounced back from Everton, and I tried to let everyone know this is just a cycle for Everton. They're shit, and then they're not, and then they like are almost relegated, and then they survive. Well, they've scored no goals. They've conceded, I think, 7 goals, and they've lost twice. And so, yes, it was Spurs. Spurs were due for a bounce back game, but Everton are like actually so bad. Are they worse than they have been the last 3 years? Like, I thought they've improved this summer, but I guess not.
I don't know, man. They are bad. Like the bits and pieces I was watching that game, it was just getting
torched,
pounded. I really just don't even know where to go with this team. They have like Calvert-Lewin, like he's done nothing. It feels like maybe the past couple of years now at this point. I don't really know where I'm at with him anymore. Pickford has no chance because he's got nobody in front of him. I almost feel bad for him. But I'll give my credit to Tottenham. They needed a bounce back after that Leicester game. I still don't know how they tied that game with the amount of chances they had. And with no Solanke, Son stepped up big time after maybe a little bit of a disappointing first game, 2 goals. Basuma hit an absolute rocket off the bar and in. He didn't start last game, but they get him in there today or this weekend, and he played very well. I don't know, but I do feel like the main story coming out of this game is like Everton could be in trouble this year.
Yeah, Spurs, it was a big game for them to bounce back, but also to get in that same position and put their foot down on someone's throat, right? Like they played the same way against Leicester the week before, and they didn't get that second goal. And then all of a sudden that game changed with Harry Vardy. And, then they had the same situation, but they put it away. 3 goals in the end for a 4-0 win. So that's, to me, a big story for Spurs, but that's really the only extent of what Spurs was talked about. Now, for those that continually followed the show all year, first of all, 1 year again, thank you. And you know how I feel about Everton. And so that certainly has not changed to start the season. But that being said, like Daniel said, it is a long season, and Everton are not even near the relegation really battle yet, 2 weeks in. So let's not overreact. They need to be down about 10 points with like 10 weeks to go, and then they will find a way to get out of relegation. So don't worry about Everton, but God, are they fucking awful, and it's hard to watch.
Yeah, I think it's baffling the fact that Dominic Calvert-Lewin continues to start when you just sign a guy in Die from Marseille who had a pretty good year, and then you signed Beto like 6 months to 12 months ago. I mean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's his years were behind him 5 years ago. So why don't you just try a new lineup? I mean, it's the back line. A normal Deitch team has a pretty sturdy back line. That back line is years past it. They're trying to sign Trippier, which I don't know if is a good thing or a bad thing based off Trippier's form the last 6 months. But I'm not calling for panic sightings, but I'm calling for a little help. I mean, you can't sell your best midfielder in Onana to Aston Villa and then sign the 19-year-old kid from Villa in a swap deal. Like, they have no steel in the midfield. Everything's bad. And I just don't even know. I mean, their squad's just old. It probably averages like 32 years old too, which doesn't help. But yeah, I mean, it's it's Sean Deitch. Maybe they do need Allardyce now thinking about it, but but Sean Deitch is a good manager. I'm sure he'll figure it out or he'll get sacked and Allardyce will come in. But yeah, not good. Not good. Now there was another
They need Braithwaite back bad.
and Branthwaite might get sold as well. There's rumors of him
I
getting
don't-
sold. That's the nail in the coffin if that's true. I hope it's not for Everton's sake, but not good. But there was another team that got absolutely pounded this week, and Ipswich met Manchester City, and they'll always have that first 10 minutes of that game. Sammy Schmadix, what a goal! But
what a
then
name.
they proceeded to, City decided to score 3 goals in 10 minutes, and that was all she wrote.
I couldn't really believe
that was all she wrote. That's really all we need to talk about for this one. That was all she wrote. It was kind of one of those. It's just City blasting the worst of the promotion teams for the most part. Like that. What did you expect? That's kind of how that was going to go.
I just didn't.
You summed it up perfectly. The way that they got their moment, and then that was it. Like, here you go, and welcome to the Premier League. That's the best of the best right there, my friend. And prime example, they just dismantled a Premier League side. Like, that wasn't even once it was 1-0 down. I know we won 6-2, not even remotely close to the same thing. Like, the way they just dominated this game after that goal was yeah, that's kind of all you had to really talk about.
4 goals in 16 minutes, and the game was literally over in 16 minutes. Like, I didn't even watch I didn't even see the 4th goal because I just was not interested anymore. But the last game I did want to talk to, and no, it's not Liverpool, even though we've won 2 in a row, no big deal. Brighton beating Manchester United, 7:30 kickoff on Saturday morning, bright and early. And this game had a little bit of everything, had a 90th plus minute winner. It had probably the funniest goal offsides I've ever seen. And Manchester United fans continue to smash the panic button after an unconvincing 2 weeks of football.
This game was
I
fun.
I have a take, so go ahead, Harrison. So I'll wait.
I guess my first thought, Danny mentioned the offsides. That was hilarious. I know Xerxes not trying to touch that ball at all, and it's kind of unfortunate, but it's kind of also recent Manchester United kind of classic that things aren't going their way. Secondly, the winner in stoppage time. I mean, that defending is horrible, absolutely horrible. How you have 3 guys looking at Adingra, well, not even 3, really the whole team looking at Adingra, and then the back post, there's just 3 Brighton players just standing there waiting for it. I'm not sure what the hell happened there, but that was atrocious. This whole second half also, when it was 1-1 and, you think things would get tight, it kind of opened up even more, which was a little bit surprising to me. But that's also kind of Brighton's style this year, is that they're going to be pressing super high and they have a super high line. Almost reminds me a lot of Hansi Flick's style of play, how, they play a super high line and they're susceptible at times to balls behind, but they know that they'll have a good chance of also winning the ball back. So yeah, I think Brighton's going to be a really fun team to watch this year, especially just with their style of play. You're going to get goals on both ends.
This was actually a lot of fun to watch. The take doesn't come till after because there was actually some stuff to like talk about in this match for a second. Like, I think this was a really fun match. Both teams are up, back and forth, up and down the pitch. Early season for sure. You can tell defenses around the league haven't been stellar for the most part. It's been pretty offensive a little bit in a lot of the games. So it was fun to watch. And Brighton have a really nice squad that's coming around. And obviously, De Zerbi moving on, wondering what that was going to look like. This new guy from 31-year-old managers like done a really nice job of taking pieces that were there and still having that aggressive style of play with a little bit more control, I think, than De Zerbi played with. I think that's going to bode well for them. Manchester United. What are 5 guys, like Harrison said, look like I don't understand the late runner as like maybe that guy didn't get picked up because he missed him coming from outside the box. But like the 2 guys are just standing by themselves, basically could have had multiple drinks and had a conversation and still scored before United got over there. Like that was some of the worst defending. And to me, this is why, depending on how this game goes on Saturday against Liverpool, if it's ugly, Erik ten Hag could be out during the international break. Like,
wow,
there's been no change in the way that they've played. Clearly, it's the same old, and this is now 2 years and 2 games, and the fans are really upset about it. Clearly, they're not already on a good terms with how he kind of played last year. I'm just saying, if Liverpool go and spank him, he could be out during the international break and complete changeover, which they should have done over the summer. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows they should have done it over the summer. They wanted to get rid of him. He's the fifth probably choice that they really wanted to bring in, and they had to sign him because no one wanted to take the job. So yeah, if wouldn't surprise me is all I'll say.
I like it.
What I'm saying is Liverpool, him beating Liverpool in the FA Cup and then beating Liverpool in the Prem, I believe he did the double on us. That literally saved Erik ten Hag's job for like 6 months. And we've come to that renewal process with Man United fans of the renewal. And so if they get a result against us on Saturday, then he's bought himself till Christmas. But if the 2 Dutch
100%, by the way, that's totally fair. That's totally fair.
But 2 Dutch managers going against each other. I mean, Man U have signed like 9 Ajax or Dutch players from the Eredivisie. I mean, sacking him now and then bringing in a manager, which they hired Ruud van Nistelrooy as the caretaker. Obviously, if no one's watching, he's the strikers coach, but he will come in and caretake for him if he gets fired. I think that would be hilarious. I definitely don't think he lasts till Christmas, but an early exit after 3 games in the Prem would be just the most Man United thing ever. And now that you mentioned it, I'm kind of hoping for it.
I just like, why is Garnacho not starting?
That's
why that makes no sense to me. Like, did all of a sudden, is he getting blackmailed by Marcus Rashford? Like, what has Marcus Rashford done for Manchester United in the past year compared to what Alejandro Garnacho has done? I just don't understand that whatsoever. Really, even Mason Mount
also subbing Harry Maguire 75th minute. Why would you sub a center back? Like, there's some choices that he makes that I'm just like, either start Delit or just let Maguire play the whole game. Like, you don't want to take your center backs out, especially late in the game when you're trying to save a point, which at the end of the game, that was his stuff in the press conference. Well, at some point, if you don't have a chance to win the game, don't lose it. Well, then don't change out your center back. Like that, I just don't. So it all adds up, and it's Manchester United, like you said, which is the only reason why I would say it, because no other club would sack their manager after 4 games. But this is different, and it's different, and I would not be surprised. But probably Christmas, if they're playing poorly, is more realistic.
I just don't understand, though, like, if there's all this speculation about him possibly getting, like, I understand him beating Liverpool and then eventually beating City in the final is what brought him back. It's just so crazy to me that then all of a sudden, like, 5 games into the next season, he could be gone. Like, I almost feel like you gotta do the fresh start at the beginning with the potential that maybe this would happen. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of a shit show.
It always is with them. It has been since Sir Alex Ferguson left, and it might
Yeah.
always be the cycle they keep going in. I mean, the new owner hasn't done shit different from the previous one. Let's just be honest here. And you mentioned Garnacho. What an absolute joke that he's not starting. I mean, Mason Mount and Anthony on your books, two of the biggest busts in the Premier League. Those guys are so bad. It's unbelievable. And I mean, good for Chelsea for milking out 70 million from them, and Ajax for getting 75 million from Anthony. But both of those players played in this game, and they're one of the two worst players in the entire Premier League right now. So Garnacho not starting. Xerxes goes, your new signing goes and scores the game winner week 1, and then you bench him again in week 2. Just like the man management makes no sense. And if he starts Mason Mount and benches Garnacho against Liverpool, Liverpool will win 5-0 next week. He will not. He won't do it.
The only thing Mason Mount brings is pressing. That's the only thing he can do is press. Like, I mean, he obviously had a decent goal.
He had one good year at
Chelsea,
Betis. One good year at Betis, and then good year for us. And that was it.
Yeah,
so
that was completely it.
70 million later.
So bad. But hey, another homegrown, one of your own sold. You gotta love it. But let's move on to another league that did not disappoint, and we got an absolute treat on Friday at, I think it was like 3:00 game. And when you didn't think the Bundesliga could get any better, especially with Bayer Leverkusen winning the Bundesliga last year, I mean, that opening kickoff against Gladbach, a 4-3 thriller, starting off with an absolute rocket from Granit Xhaka just to start out the Bundesliga season. This game had it all. If you didn't watch the highlights, don't watch the highlights. Go watch the replay, because this game was worth the entire 90 minutes of football that we unveiled, and it had, from the start to the finish, full action all the time.
I'm going to just make this known on the show because I've been talking about it a little bit of late. The Bundesliga is the most fun league to watch.
Yes.
Like, and I know Daniel's been on this bandwagon all last year too, a little bit. It's the most fun league to watch. Like, may not be the best. It might not be the prettiest football, or of course, the Man City, Arsenal, Real Madrid type of players per se. It's just a fun league to watch. And this game was awesome. This game was just great. I don't have anything else to say, except for how can Bayer do it again? Is going to really annoy me if this happens every single game. But I'll give them one game because this was awesome.
It's like when the clock hits 90 minutes, it's when they go. It's insane. I don't know. They did it all of last year, and they're starting off this year again. Like you said, I really, if they do this again, I'm going to go insane. I felt like maybe an unfortunate ending for Mönchengladbach. That penalty they gave was it's close. I think it is a penalty, but also it's so close to whether he actually got a piece of the ball or not that I almost felt bad for him. But I actually was watching this game, and it was, I believe, 2-0, and I fell asleep for about 20 minutes, maybe 20 to 25 minutes. And I woke back up and it was 2-2. And I'm like, how the hell did that happen? And then ended up watching the rest of it. Gladbach, I mean, that's a decent performance from them, coming off a disappointing and frankly bad season last year. So to give their home supporters, something at least a little bit to be proud of in that kind of performance, it could set a good tone for them the rest of the year. But it's just Leverkusen doing Leverkusen things. And, Florian Wirtz pulling the strings once again, scoring 2 goals. He could be, again, a player of the year candidate, frankly, for Leverkusen. So, if they do this shit again, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping for it. I couldn't agree more. It was Friday, which was a couple days ago, so it's not as fresh in my brain as the Sunday or Saturday games. I think definitely a bunch of managers will look at the blueprint that Gladbach set up, especially to get back into the game. Where was the weaknesses, things like that, and maybe Bundesliga teams will have some things to look at in terms of Xabi Alonso's style. But Boniface didn't score, but looked it's like he looked
Should have
just
scored.
dangerous. He should have
Should've
scored
scored.
multiple goals. I mean, Florian Wirtz to miss the penalty, but to have the tap in is just the most Bayer Leverkusen thing ever. They've increased the quality in the midfield now with another ball playing center mid who came in from Girona.
And
So
Hoffman.
and Hoffman.
I forget about him. Like, frankly, like when the game was on and it was saying Hoffman for like Leverkusen, I always think of him as a Gladbach player. So when they were saying Hoffman, I was like, God, I forgot Leverkusen have him still too.
And they got rid of Hošlek, who was the bust from Czech Republic, and then they go and sign Martin Terrier from Rennes, who was linked to like Liverpool and really good clubs in the Premier League before he hurt his knee. So, I mean, they only got better. They didn't lose anyone, and they're still going to be the best watch, maybe in the entire world. So, if you have not been watching them and you've been living under a rock, go ahead and flip on ESPN Plus at 9:30 every Saturday and just treat yourself to Xabi Alonso ball. Now, the other big story, are they going to win it or is Bayern going to win it? Well, Bayern played Wolfsburg on Sunday at Wolfsburg, and they had a little bit of a scare. They went up 1, they went down 2, and then they scored 2. And Matt's going to say it, so I'm going to go ahead and get in front of this. I said, LOL Bayern, are they going to do this again? And they did not, which kind of disappointed me. But, I mean, just an example
Kid
of
called
last
his shot.
season.
Kid called his shot a little early.
I did. And Wolfsburg, a team like Gladbach, who has been massively disappointing the last couple years, actually showed me something on Sunday. But, I mean, if Bayern want to win this league, they got to tighten up at the back. And Upamecano, Min Jae Kim looked just horrendous. Who's going to replace him? Are you really going to start Eric Dyer 30 games this season? I don't think so. And then you sell Matthias de Ligt, who was questionable, but he's solid. So, like, who starts on that back line? Alphonso Davies is on his way out. Sacha Bowie had a nice assist, but gave up the penalty. They improved every other position, but the back line continues to just be horrendous. And if they lose, it's because of the back line.
Yeah, I don't know. Their back line it's not great, and there's not great depth there either. Like, you're putting in Dyer as the replacement. I don't know if that's going to solve your problems. And if you lose Alphonso Davies, like I know it's Alphonso Davies. You're not going to be able to replace him, but at least you do have Rafael Guerrero, who at least is a suitable replacement. Sacha Bowie got some burn at right back. Honestly, not super familiar with this guy, and now they have Kimmich playing in the middle. It's a lot of change. It's kind of different for Bayern, but for bright spots, I mean, I think Elise looked good on the right wing. I've always loved him as a player. I thought he was amazing at Palace last year. So at least I think going forward, they'll be fine. Like, the fact that they scored 3 without Kane getting 1 that's good for Bayern. But again, I think this offense is probably what's going to have to carry them all year, because I just don't trust their back line.
It is interesting, though, that they won this game, in contrast to how they probably would have lost this game last year, the way that their season went. So, of course, they didn't look great. There's still silly season to happen between now and Friday with the transfer window, so you never know who they can bring in. It is still Bayern Munich, but they got the W, and it's week 1, and again, these big teams, they're going to have to kind of progress into a season. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I know that analogy sucks and is used all the time, but it's 38 games or 30, a few less than Bundesliga, but it's a long season. So you get the 3 points. You're on the road, by the way, so I mean, good start for Vincent Kompany. One for one on the next.
Chelsea has some center backs if they want some.
Yeah, exactly. Trevor Chalobah was ranked with them at one point, so they still have options. Window's not closed yet.
I will say that Hiroki Ito was their big signing in the summer, the Japanese international. He's just hurt right now. He played for Stuttgart last year and was really solid, so maybe he'll be the shoe-in. And then Bayern just pray that another center back just can find quality and not make huge gaffes. I mean, Min-Jae Kim was the defender of the entire season when Napoli won. Didn't have a single mistake, and then now it's just been mistake ridden. Upamecano has always had it in him, so this is no surprise to anyone on that case. And then Eric Dyer is just simply Eric Dyer. So I still think Bayern are really good. I mean, Palhinha, Elise, like you said, Harrison, great signings. They didn't sell many people. They still have Mueller somehow. Mueller all times appearance leader now for Bayern, and he made the second goal happen. So congratulations to him. But I think we're still going to be in for a huge race in the Bundesliga, and I can't wait to cover it every single week with you guys. To kind of go to La Liga, there was a big match here, Barcelona versus Athletic Bilbao, probably the biggest match of the summer. We covered Girona and the miraculous season they had last year, and they're definitely not going to do that this year. I can guarantee that. So, in your opinion, do you think Bilbao is going to be this fourth team, behind Madrid, the two Madrids and Barcelona, or do you think a team like Celta or Villarreal, who played today in a really fun match, are going to be able to challenge these three favorites here at the top of the Liga table based off what you watched in that game and everything else?
I would probably say I would still chalk in Bilbao at 4, but Villarreal to start the year, I've really liked watching them play. And they're dangerous going forward. They got some guys going forward. Pino has been there for a long time, but you add Danjuma, and you already have Moreno there, and they've scored a ton of goals to start the year. So obviously they're flying. I think Bilbao, I mean, the first game, no Nico for the majority of it, and they tie that game. Obviously, a game you should win, but they tie. But then I think they put in a pretty solid performance against Barcelona, which is nothing to slouch your head about. So I would say they're probably still the fourth best team in La Liga for me. I think Villarreal are right on their heels, especially with the way they've started the year. But like we've mentioned multiple times, it is a long season. We don't exactly know how it's going to go. But honestly, a good performance from Bilbao against a team in Barcelona who have started the year looking very good. I liked what I see, even with the young kids in the middle. I mean, you don't even have your normal boys in there, and they're getting it done. So I like what I see from Barcelona.
Yeah, Barca was good. I still like my team from last year, Daniel. I think Real Betis is still going to be up there. I think it's funny you posed the question the day that the team that you're suggesting lost, but I think that Atletico Bilbao will be up there as well, but I think Betis has a little bit more. And who knows what happens to Nico Williams? Obviously, he won't leave in the summer, but winter, you never know. So a lot can change between now and then. So Betis knows what they are. I like what they have there. They've been consistent, so I'll take that team for now. But I could be surprised. Could be totally flipped in a few weeks. Now they play a little bit faster, so they have midweek games right now already. The game today was for week 3, I think. So they're kind of already ahead of everybody else by a week and 2 weeks ahead of Germany. So they're moving pretty quickly through La Liga season as it goes.
Absolutely. I actually think it's the perfect time. Are we going to overreact to the loss, or are we still believing in the hype? But when it comes to Barcelona, I've said multiple times now on the record that they're a good team. They're just really young, and you never know what you're going to get from them. Well, I think this performance proved that they can play pretty formidable opponents and still look good. I mean, Paul Kubarsi continues to start, another 17-year-old with Marc Bernal out of the woodwork, starting the new Barcelona CDM here. Ale Balde started, Lamine Yamal, obviously, and then you have on the opposite end a 36-year-old Lewandowski who's looking like he's going to go and be the top scorer in La Liga this year if he stays healthy. He could have had a brace at least in this game, and he looks extremely deadly. If Real Madrid looked really shaky against Real Valladolid this weekend, so I'm selling stock on them and buying more stock on Barcelona. I thought Rafinha looked really good, but I'm concerned about the depth there. Like, is Ferran Torres going to have a good year? Because they need him to be firing. Can Fermin Lopez kind of do what he did last year and take over for Pedri if he gets injured? And then we still haven't even seen Frankie de Jong yet. So is he going to get sold because their finances are so bad? Apparently today, Olmo just got registered. So congrats to Danny Olmo. They have 6 other midfielders. Didn't really need you, but you're still good. So, I'm going to be pulling for Barca, even though their decisions on how they run their club, I couldn't disagree with more. But, I think I'm just kind of tired of seeing Real Madrid have their heyday, and that might be because I'm a Liverpool fan, and that's okay. That's okay. Other big storylines, Endrick scored his first goal for Real Madrid. Don't really have to get too much into that game because the result was how everyone expected it to be. But I will say, Calcio Serie A might be the weirdest league out here.
Wow, just gonna move over probably the team that might win La Liga. Doesn't even bring him up. But okay,
Yeah,
keep going.
hates him.
Keep going.
Who? Athletic Madrid?
Yeah,
Atletico Madrid?
absolutely.
You think,
Absolutely.
You think so?
Dark horse. Absolute dark horse.
Let's talk about
to
it.
win it.
Let's talk
What
about
would
it.
you like to know?
Marcus Llorente looks great, but Grisou, other than that free kick, looked lost on that field. So, I think his mind's in Hollywood at this point.
Well, first of all, it was an absolute stellar free kick. Let's just be honest. And
it was. Ball doesn't lie either, because that should have been a red card from the keeper.
And they've made a lot of moves in the summer. And
they have.
Good moves. I mean, Griezmann's going to leave. What do you think? Julian Alvarez wasn't thought of because he was going to leave? Like, that's a nice baton to pass to Julian Alvarez from Antoine Griezmann, if you're asking me. And, forget how we feel about Conor Gallagher because he's probably not top Premier League.
Legend.
He'll still play and fit perfectly in Diego Simeone's like midfield and the way he plays. So, and not to mention they added a good center back. So like right up the middle, 3 strong players. They have the, Koke, they have all, the players they had, Riquelme and Llorente, like they got pieces, and Simeone knows how to play defense, as we all know. So I'm just saying they just dismantled Girona, who, of course, I think that luck and magic was probably due to run out, but they made that look pretty easy. And that wasn't even including kind of giving those guys a chance to get up to speed with how Simeone wants to play. So I'm just saying, Madrid better watch out because they got some competition this year, and not just Barcelona too.
Okay, no, I think that's fair, especially Lenormand, the center back signing. I thought they needed some reinforcements at the back. If we're buying stock here, I'm buying Atletico's over Real Madrid. I watched almost the entire Real Valladolid game. I just don't see how this Real Madrid team all these guys can coexist and play good football. It just seems really top heavy.
First half was rough.
First half was real bad.
But they have Carlo, so Carlo will figure it out.
Yeah, it might take a couple games, but I do think he'll figure it out in the end, which sucks. Bellingham being out early, I think is actually a blessing in disguise for them. Just to figure out how to survive without Jude, because Jude just did Jude last year. So I don't know. Mbappe had 3 or 4 chances, didn't get to score on his Madrid debut. Not obviously pressing the panic button for the best player in the world probably at this rate, but I don't know. I don't think he'd be happy with how he started life in the capital of Spain. But to go back to Italy, I hyped up Roma. I hyped up AC Milan. I shit on Napoli, who have a mixed bag of results but looked a lot better. And I didn't give Juventus a chance. And Juventus look phenomenal. Roma look awful. Paulo Fonseca for AC Milan is on the hot seat. And then Inter Milan get a bounce back win here. Fellas, I do not know what to make of this Serie A, weekday. But my head is spinning in all sorts of different directions.
It's going to be a fun league. I feel for everyone else once Inter gets going. It'll probably be another runaway, but it'll be a fun league top to bottom. If you can find it. I don't know where it's played. Paramount?
Yeah.
So
$2 a month deal right now. Matt still won't buy it. That's okay. But if we want to start a GoFundMe, you guys can
I'll
help.
take the GoFundMe.
You guys can donate Matt Gesslin $24. That's all he needs to watch this season's games. Harrison, I know you've watched some Calcio a little bit. Both U.S. national team players starting for AC Milan, they still can't figure it out. Are we worried about this Milan team? Do you think Paulo Fonseca is on borrowed time, or is it like a Chelsea project where we just got to figure it out and give it the project a couple more games?
Yeah, a little too early still for me. And they haven't had Morata, who's arguably, the biggest guy they brought in, and a
Yep.
guy who I have high expectations for this year. I think he's been bagging in goals for that team. So the fact that they haven't been playing with him, I'll give them a little bit of a pass. Obviously, not ideal. Losing to Parma on the road, like you really, if you're going to contend for the title, that can't happen. But good to see Christian get on the board. Needed it, and I like him playing in that 10. Makes me happy. So yeah, a little too early for Milan or AC Milan at least. Some of the other games, like just some weird results this weekend. Like Atalanta, we were super high on them after losing their last two. They lose on the road. Again, Napoli, we don't know what they are. And they have Lukaku coming in, so maybe that changes some things, and they get
And
a win.
McTominay too,
and Scott, who just signed like today. So there's so many unknowns, and maybe the biggest unknown, or at least the team that I especially not high on at all. Juventus looks phenomenal after 2 games, so that's classic. Mata bringing his style into play, and Vlahovic scoring 2 goals. They're going to need him all year, I think. Especially with the players that are probably going out for that team. So, again, a mixed bag of stuff, and I don't really know what to expect from Serie A.
No, and that it's the gift that keeps giving for that reason. Atalanta should have tied it up, missed a penalty late, and hit the post and the crossbar like 3 separate occasions in the last 30 minutes of the game. I mean, De Rossi, with a full preseason under his belt, could, after a loss at the Coliseum to a bad Empoli team, he could, be on the way out. So we could see a coaching carousel happen here in Serie A. You mentioned Vlahovic, Harrison. I think Vlahovic has been the second best striker in Serie A for a couple years now. He just had to be coached under some terrible managers, Andrea Pirlo, Allegri. Who was before Allegri, Matt? I can't remember. But he is flourishing under Thiago Motta's system. The academy kids are as well.
Wasn't Conte there?
Conte
yeah,
was
that's why I thought he
there.
was being facetious. So I
No.
didn't even respond to him.
I was
goat.
serious. I had no idea. No, Conte, that was like the good Juventus like a decade ago, though. Like I meant like the previous stint of Allegri. Like he just left. He was before him. I genuinely couldn't remember that. But no, they look good. And Lautaro hasn't even really featured for Inter yet. So once he gets back, I'm sure Inter will get going, and it's going to be a 2-horse race here between Juventus and Inter. I'm going to take Inter all day, every day. But it seems like Thiago Motta is again doing, a great job with a meh team, and you're going to see some youngsters flourish from it. But again, this was another edition of the Full-Time Roundup. Thank you both for joining today. To all the listeners who's been with us from the very start or have just started recently, we appreciate you. Anyone who's ever contributed to the podcast, we appreciate you. And, we're definitely excited to keep this train going, and let us know if you have any topics every week that you would like us to touch on via X and at Full-Time Roundup, and we'd be happy to discuss it. Again, this is Daniel Brackett, your host at Liverpool CLTFC, at Life of Gesslin, or M Gesslin, excuse me, and H Clark _2. You can find us on X at all those handles, and we will be back after international break more than likely.